Keep your eyes peeled for the rant at the end of the video. So, second video on the Triumph Tiger 955. So I have had a further look around. I'm attempting to recover some life into the battery. I know it's knackered, it's never going to work again, but just enough power to see if I can fire up the ignition before I sort of start spending any money on the bike. I'll do how I've done my sort of trick revival on a battery with 0.7 volts on it in another video. It's a bit of a bodge, but it's just enough to energize the solenoids and see if the dashboard lights up if this fix works. So what I think the problem I'm trying to get past first, and you've probably seen by the thumbnail and by the part sitting here, is that I think because the battery has gone completely flat, the bike has spiked the alarm. Now what that essentially means is you need to unspike the alarm, and possibly with this bike, if it's been sat long enough, re-enter pin codes into the remotes to make the remotes work together. So effectively when you put power to this bike, the alarm fires, the dash doesn't light up because the ECU is immobilized. So what this part here does is it actually circumvents the factory alarm. So I'm going to try plugging this in first. Obviously you have to buy something to do this. So this is the one and only thing I've bought so far for this bike. This piece of paper here is purely just to cover over the chassis number, so that I don't spread that chassis number all over the internet. But I'm sure, yeah, all my lovely viewer won't do that for me. But when we get there, I'm going to do a video on this, plugging it in, see if by bypassing, it's got a data tool 3 on it, this, which is factory fit for the time. And we're just going to see if by bypassing it, it will just light up the dash, energize the fuel pump, and see where we're at. So following on from that, I've had a further look around the bike, and unfortunately, so before I can get to the alarm, the top box here, the lock is rusted to hell and back. I mean, I've been trying to loosen it up, so I think, no, I hate doing this, but I'm going to just have to physically drill the lock out to physically remove this from the bike so I can get access to the rear here and get inside underneath this panel here, because I think some of the alarm mechanism is below there. I'm not sure, but I will find out by having a look, as it's the first time I've worked on something that isn't Chinese and small. Well, for 30 odd years anyway. So, because I'm old. And it's also nice to have a bike here with an OBD connector. So I do have the other bike that I have, the RKS, that has an OBD connector as well, and that was very handy in checking out the faults on that. So hopefully that will give me some valuable information when I scan it. But again, can't do much until I get access to the ECU. That hopefully will give me access to the ECU by bypassing the alarm. So in my investigations of what might be wrong with this thing, I'm looking at all this mess down the side here, and I'm thinking there's a fair to middling chance there is a coolant leak going on somewhere. We will have to wait and see when I get to the point of turning over the engine and see if it's been hydrolocked, check if there's water in the cylinders. I've had a look at I can't see any obvious signs of distress around the head gasket. The water, I topped it up. It was almost full. The oil is not mayonnaisey. It's old and clear. But interestingly, the petrol does smell quite fresh. So I have a suspicion that this has been parked up for yonks and yonks and yonks. And someone threw a bit of petrol in, tried to get it started, couldn't do anything with it. And then disposed of it. Oh, and it might have been an estate sale. I really don't know. I know it's a relatively local bike to me. I bought it from Copart, and now comes the rant. Right, now, rant o'clock. This bike was bought from Copart. I've bought 5 units so far from Copart. Collected them, brought them back, worked on them, MOT'd them, and so on. I've done everything entirely by the book. I just can't abide. When I picked this bike up, it took me a few minutes to just absorb what I saw. A guy received a written-off car from the compound and drove it straight out onto the public highway without any work whatsoever. I mean, it's so dangerous. This one had a sticker on the back saying there could be electrical damage, as it was a hybrid, presumably a mild hybrid because it started. But this is just craziness. I spoke to a guy who worked there, and he said people sometimes, when they can't intercept them, they're driving away with cars with wheels literally hanging off on 3 wheels. I mean, who would want to drive a car on 3 wheels? Get a bloody transporter and shift it. It's just insanity. Absolute insanity. It gives people like me a bad name that work on these bikes. I mean, I am not doing this for profit. I'm doing it for my health. I know. Maybe I'll do a video on that one day. I don't think it's particularly relevant to this, but I do feel that at one point I will need to discuss it. But maybe another time. But even if you're doing this for profit, I mean, put a trailer on the back of your car. Put a trailer on the back of your van. You either hire it or buy it once, and then you own it, and then you can shift it, and then you're safe. And then not just you're safe, but everyone else on the road is safe. I mean, could you imagine it if someone drove that car past a school and, you know, this loose wheel just broke away and crushed a child coming out of at the end of their school day, infants or something like that? I mean, it just doesn't bear thinking about. I mean, I would fully support the police just doing what they do, like with auctions. Sorry, not with auctions, with magistrates' courts occasionally, and just having a car parked outside and catching the disqualified drunk driver who's driven to court and getting in their car and nicking them for driving without a licence. I mean, these people just need to be nicked. They need to be nicked. They need to have their rights revoked on buying this sort of stuff, disbarred from trading, whatever it is. It's just not safe. And people, you know, if they're treating these vehicles like this when they're picking them up, I mean, what are they like when they sell them? What are they like when they sell them? I mean, if I just got this engine running, stuck an MOT on it, without looking at anything else, and said, runs and drives, MOT, up for sale, cheap. It could have a myriad of dangerous faults on it. I know people out there will accept that sort of kind of vehicle if it's cheap enough, but you can't take these risks. You just can't take these risks. It's just not fair. Or fair is not, you know, nothing in life is fair, I suppose. But you have to look after people. You have to think about your impact on others. And I just despair when I saw it. It took me it took me a couple of minutes to actually sink in what these guys were doing. Because basically got in the car, looked over it, and they hot-footed it out the sight, like, boom, put the pedal to the metal and drove out so fast that no one could actually intercept them and stop them. Guys, if you're fixing salvage, do it right. Do it right. Here endeth the preach. If you like what I've said, please like, comment, subscribe, questions. I can't describe what my spidey senses are. I'm nowhere near as good as Superbike Surgery, obviously, at fixing bikes. I'm nowhere near as organised as RRC, or indeed as qualified as the works to work on Triumphs. But, you know, we're here. We're going to do this. You know, you, me, and the other subscriber are going to do it together and see what happens. And perhaps I'll just try and do a bit more hands-on stuff rather than describing after the fact what I've done. Because I think that's the sort of information that people want to see. I certainly have seen that on certain videos that have really hit where people really need information, like for example on Chinese CBS. So I might do some more detail on Chinese CBS as well, because I think again, you might have picked up, I'm quite keen on safety, but secondly, it's just nothing out there. I mean, if you as a DIYer wanted to do that, there's just nothing out there for you to do. There's a couple of Haynes manuals, and because they're catch-all manuals, the manufacturers don't make anything. The manufacturers, if you're really lucky, will print a service schedule inside the book. But, you know, finding torques and engine specifications. I mean, there's one bike I've got here. The valve clearances from the manufacturer are listed as 0.08 to 0.1. I mean, and at the extremes, it doesn't work. You've just got to fiddle around until you find that sweet spot of no noise from the valve train and performance. It's just craziness. And this sort of stuff is the reason, I think, why less and less people are thinking of bikes as cheap transport. And more people, it's just an overpriced toy, which is a real shame. These things deserve to be real transport again. Bye for now.